I call on Congress to pass a package of measures to crack down on illegal activity and hold accountable those who manipulate the market for private gain at the expense of millions of working families. And be specific. First, Congress should provide immediate funding to put more cops on the beat to monitor activity in energy markets. This funding would also upgrade technology so that our surveillance and enforcement officers aren't hamstrung by older and less sophisticated tools than the ones that traders are using. Second, Congress should increase the civil and criminal penalties for illegal energy market manipulation and other illegal activities. So my plan would toughen key financial penalties tenfold and impose these penalties not just per violation, but for every day a violation occurs. Third, Congress should give the agency responsible for overseeing oil markets new authority to protect against volatility and excess speculation by making sure that traders can post appropriate margins, which simply means that they actually have the money to make good on their trades. None of these steps by themselves will bring gas prices down overnight. But it will prevent market manipulation and make sure we're looking out for American consumers. And in the meantime, we're going to keep pursuing an all-of-the-above strategy for American energy to break the cycle of price spikes year after year.
I don't know what he's talking about. That's how we're going to solve the problem. If you were to determine how much the price of a $100 barrel of oil right now, how much of that is due to manipulative speculation, there are some people who say it might be $10. Maybe it's $20. There are three reasons oil prices are high. Number one, world demand continues to be high for oil. Not in America. Our demand for oil is actually lower. We are still 5% of the world's population. We still consume about 20 to 25% of the world's oil, but our demand is flattening out. It's China, it's India, it's places like that. World demand is growing. People who produce oil, countries and companies, manage their output so that oil prices stay high enough that they make a lot of money, like about $100, not so high that people say, I'm going to use less oil. So that, the OPEC and the Saudis have sort of decided that $100 a barrel is about where that works. And we export a whole lot of our gasoline now in the United States because we get more money. Companies that make gasoline get more money for selling it in other places because gasoline is more expensive almost everywhere else in the world than it is in the United States. So while I applaud the idea that the president said that manipulators shouldn't have better tools than the regulators have, absolutely I get that. But in the end, that speculative part of the oil price is a very bumpy, jagged, and somewhat disconnected line to the price that we pay at the pump.
But it's
not got nothing to do with it, but for the president to walk away and say, that's how we solve the problem,
but
I would have to say, if I were those political people, I would say, almost pants on fire.
Brian, a few times you've mentioned illegal activities. It was a year ago that the president asked for the Department of Justice and CFTC to formalize this task force. At the time, Holder said, if illegal conduct is responsible, federal and state authorities should take swift action. A commissioner at CFTC said, we need to use the tools Congress gave us to stop excessive speculation. We need to do it now. I've called both places. I've not heard back from the CFTC. Justice cannot point us to any action that has been taken to date against any specific illegal actor. This entire move by the White House today is premised on the assumption that there is illegal action. So what concrete evidence can you point to suggest this isn't just optics?
Right. So I would say a couple of things. The first, again, as I just stated earlier, in 2011, the CFTC filed a civil complaint against several oil companies for potential manipulative activity. Likewise, the FTC has an open investigation into anti-competitive behavior. But I think that there's a broader issue which at stake here.
Obviously, rising gas prices means a rough ride for a lot of families. When you're trying to get to school, trying to get to work, do some grocery shopping, you have to be able to fill up that gas tank. And there are families in certain parts of the country that have no choice but to drive 50 or 60 miles to get to the job. So when gas prices go up, it's like an additional tax that comes right out of your pocket. If we're going to get serious and cap the emission of greenhouse gases that are causing global warming, then we are going to be having power plants have to figure out how they're going to reduce their carbon. because they'll have to pay penalties if they exceed the cap. And that means that they're going to have to change how their power plants operate. And that means, in turn, that they'll have to make investments that they will try to pass on to consumers and could result in higher electricity prices. The same is true when it comes to the transportation sector. I mean, not only do we have to invest in mass transit, but we also have to make sure that that people are making good decisions about cars, and they're free to, people are free to buy a Suburban if you want that gets 8 miles a gallon, but we can't subsidize to make sure that you are able to fill up your Suburban tank at a really cheap rate, because that's not the trajectory of oil prices worldwide. There are politicians who say that if we just drilled more, then gas prices would come down right away. What they don't say is that we have been drilling more. Under my administration, America is producing more oil than at any time in the last 8 years. We've opened up new areas for exploration.
Straight out of President Bush's playbook. He opened up that territory. He opened up on private land. That's why you're seeing an oil boom in North Dakota. That's why oil production in the United States is indeed up over the last 3 years. The groundwork was laid 4 or 5 years ago.
We've quadrupled the number of operating rigs to a record high. Now the latest scheme is, well, we're going to drill offshore. Now, I want to be absolutely clear to everybody about this. If I thought that I could provide you some immediate relief on gas prices by drilling off the shores of California and New Jersey, I understand how desperate folks are. There is no way that allowing offshore drilling would lower gas prices right now. At best, you're looking at 5 years or more down the road. So if I thought that by drilling offshore we could solve our problem, I'd do it. We've added enough new oil and gas pipeline to circle the earth and then some. But as I've said repeatedly, the problem is we use more than 20% of the world's oil, and we only have 2% of the world's proven oil reserves.
If you look at the really big picture here, we have enormous reserves in this shale underneath the ground, way down a mile, 2 miles under the ground. In numerous states, we've got massive oil reserves, but we're not allowed to go and get it. You could have an energy-independent United States if we were allowed to go get what is ours.
Barack Obama has rejected a Canadian company's plan to build an oil pipeline from Canada to Texas. The White House says the decision is not based on the merits of the Keystone Pipeline, but on a deadline Congress imposed in order to force Obama to make a decision.
Unfortunately, this morning we learned some news overnight that indicates that the White House is pursuing a much more disappointing approach when it comes to energy. According to reports, the President of the United States is personally lobbying senators to oppose a Keystone XL pipeline amendment in the United States Senate today.
Obama had previously tried to delay a decision on the pipeline until 2013, after the presidential election. He wanted the State Department to further study the project to see if an alternative route could reduce the environmental impact.